Welcome to the Getting Started guide for Webhooky. My name's Liam Ford. I'm the founder of Webhooky and the head of product, Webhooky Solutions. And today we're going to show you how to get up and running with Webhooky. So let's start. Let's go to our website, webhooky.com. There you go to download. And here we've shown the options for downloading Webhooky. Webhooky is a container product, so you need a Docker desktop to run it. And it has a couple of other dependencies. It uses MongoDB as a data source, and it needs an identity provider for managing the users. We've got three options here for getting going with Webhooky. The first option is the one you need to go for if you're going to just evaluate Webhooky. It comes with MongoDB and Keycloak in the Docker Compose file, so you don't have to bother with any of those components, the identity component or the database component. But of course, if you are going to do a serious production type installation, you will need to use probably one of the other options where you want to integrate with your own identity provider. And we've got the instructions there. But we'll start with the basic one to evaluate it. So let's click in there, and we can see there's basically two steps. First, we need to download the zip file that contains the Docker Compose file, as well as the Keycloak exports that we use to create our Keycloak instance. We need to create a folder on our PC or Mac. We can extract the zip folder, the zip file into that folder. So you'll see the three files there. One is the Docker Compose file, one is the Keycloak export, and another file is there to add the admin users. Great. Once we've done that, we need to, as I mentioned, we need to use Docker Desktop. So we can then bring up a command line. And in the command line, we need to go into our folder we created before, and we run the Docker Compose up command. Now we can see the command, the servers is starting up. We can go and have a look at Docker Desktop, and we can see the three containers that are starting. We have Webhooky, we have MongoDB, and we have Keycloak. All right, so that takes a little bit to start up. Primarily, Keycloak takes a few minutes to start up. But while we're waiting, we can go to now the developer portal. So let's go to localhost port 4300. This is the default port, unless you've changed it. And we can see the homepage for your Webhooky instance. And you can see the first thing you'll see is you've got that red dot at the top there, which is a server status, and that's showing that the server is unavailable at the moment, or in the case that we're in at the moment, it's starting up. So while we're waiting for it to start up, we can have a quick look through the homepage of the portal. We can see that there is a place where we'll have our webhooks, which is currently empty because we haven't created anything yet. We've got the basic overview of how to get started, which is register and log in. Discover the webhooks, test out the webhooks, and subscribe. And these are the easy steps that your Webhook API consumers can take once you're up and running with Webhook to subscribe to the data and get integrated. And we can see all the reasons at the bottom there why we think webhooks are great. So we can scroll back up, and now we can see that the server status is now green, and we can log in. So we'll log in, and as we're redirected to Keycloak to log in, and we can log in at Keycloak, and we get redirected back to Webhooky. Now let's have a quick look at our account details, and I just want to highlight a few things here. So we've logged in with the admin user. This is the default user that gets created in Keycloak with this package, this first evaluation package that we showed you. And this user has the three roles that exist in Webhooky. That has the consumer role, which is for consuming Webhook APIs. This is something you want all your consumers to have. You have the provider role, which is something you want all your API providers to have. So if they're managing and deploying Webhook APIs, this is what your provider needs. And then we have the admin role, and that's obviously only the few users who need to actually administer Webhooky. But this user, as you see, has all three roles, so we've got access to everything with this user, and this is the default user that comes in this evaluation package. So let's have a look around. Let's go to the webhooks page, and we can see on the welcome page here all the webhooks we've got, which we don't have any right now. We haven't created anything. So let's go ahead and create our first Webhook API. Now, as you can see, we're now in our Webhook API designing tool, and on the left we have our editing tool. Similar to many API products out there, we're using a specification. In this case, the most popular specification people know about is OpenAPI specification. If you're dealing with event APIs like Webhook APIs, then you are going to be looking at the async API specification, and that's what we have here. So in the async API specification, we can specify all the channels or topics that we want to set up in our webhook. We can specify the schemas that we want our webhooks use, and we can specify what security options we support for the callbacks. Now, just like many of these editors, as you change stuff on the left, you see the changes on the right. Now, once you've created your API specification, you can then then select which consumer groups you want to be able to discover and be able to subscribe to this API. Now, you can either choose public, which means anyone can discover this API, and any authenticated user can subscribe to it. You need to be authenticated to subscribe to Webhook APIs, but it can be any consumer can subscribe to that. Or you can choose specific consumer groups that can subscribe to it. And this is something you can set up in your identity platform and set up in Webhooky, and then you can make sure that only certain users can see certain Webhook APIs and subscribe to them. You also need to select which provider group you want to be able to manage this Webhook API. So I'm creating this Webhook API, but if I want to share the management of this API with other developers in my team, I can do that through provider groups. Now, we don't have any provider groups set up right now for this tutorial. We'll cover that in another tutorial. So we'll just keep with the all, which means any authenticated user with a provider role can manage this API. And now we'll just publish that API, and we'll make that API available in the API gallery, and we can see the different webhooks within the API. We can select on one of them. We can see the headers and the body that this webhook will provide when a user subscribes to it. And we can also see an example of that schema on the right-hand side there. So then let's go through a subscription process to quickly show how quickly that is for a consumer. So now we're behaving as a Webhook API consumer, not as a provider, and we'll subscribe to that API. And the first thing we're asked to do is to create an application. This is just a logical grouping for all the callbacks we create. So this will be the application that's subscribing to this Webhook API. We create a callback, which is where we want Webhooky to post the events, the messages, when they occur, and as well as the method. And we can specify security options here. So in our community edition, we have just the option to have HMAC security. But if for the enterprise edition, we have other options such as OAuth and mutual TLS. Once the callback is created, we can save that subscription. And then the next thing we need to do is validate the subscription. So when we validate the subscription, we are sending an example, the example that you saw there on the right. We are sending that to the callback URL, and we need to get a 200 response, 2xx response back from the callback server. We got that 200 response, so now we can activate the subscription. Great, and now we can go have a look at those subscriptions in the subscription table. So we can see all the subscriptions we have. In this case, we have the one we just created. And we can also have a look at what else we can see. We can see the traffic. So let's go to the traffic, and we can see the traffic that's going through this webhook. Now, as we're just a new instance of Webhooky, we haven't published any traffic through it yet. So let's publish some traffic through it, and we can see what the traffic looks like in the traffic table. So let's go back to webhooky.com website. We've got the Getting Started guide, which is what I'm using here today for this tutorial. And in that guide, we have a Postman script that you can use which will have the two APIs you need to post events into Webhooky. Now you can use an API to post events like we'll do in this tutorial. You can also use AMQP to post events into Webhooky as a provider. So let's import the script. Now first it's a zip file, so we need to extract that, into a folder, extract the Postman script out of the zip file and import that script into Postman. Now, the script has a login command and a post event endpoint, and the post event endpoint needs the token from the login, and we use a variable for that, which means we need to create an environment in Postman so that the variable can be saved in that environment. So create the environment and select it, and then we can run the login command, and that login was successful, and now we can run the endpoint to post an event into Webhooky. So we can run that, and you can see the only thing we've needed to provide is in the header we can see that what event topic it is. So we can see that this matches the topic that we subscribe to. And now let's go back into Webhooky, and we can see now in the traffic table, we can see that our callback URL has received, as our subscription has received the message, and that it was posted to our callback URL, and that we got a 200 response from our callback, so we're all good. So thank you for going through this beginner guide for getting started with Webhooky. We'll be covering more topics about Webhooky in the near future. So come back and visit our site and visit our YouTube channel, where we'll have these tutorials for you to get going. So good luck with your API strategy, and good luck with your Webhook APIs. Thanks everyone. Bye.